Hi,
Hi.
thank you for being here. We are Danny and Helene, and we will talk today about the key to transformation, that's firekeeping.
So, I don't know if you noticed, but we as therapist coaches for at least 30 years each, we noticed that the question and what is happening with the people changed big time. Early days we had a lot of emotional questions, but through the years we saw difficulties like burnout, all kinds of physical, emotional traumas that came up, all kinds of different stuff. But the question was, and what we saw, was there is a disconnection. People are more and more disconnected to life itself. We're totally connected to what we should do in the economical world, but we miss our life connection. And through the years we saw more and more, and we studied a lot, that as soon as we start what we call firekeeping, something else started happening. And we started a journey together, and we talked with a lot of tribes also. There was amazing information, but it was about a practice we also call firekeeping. It was about learning how this communication works. And we'll explain why this is so key in what wants to happen next to all of us.
I'm sure you have had moments in your guiding that you feel that you're touching the next layer or something that's happening, but you're not sure. Or maybe you feel it's shifting or it's not shifting. You're on the edge or in the middle. And then you fall back to your old tools or structures or try to find solutions to make it work. And that's what we recognize too, that there is something different we needed to do to reach that spiritual part, to reach that part of meaning and values. And that's what firekeeping brought us, and what we'd like to share today, how it's going.
And today we'll sketch you a picture of how this all fits together and why it is key and how to turn the key for the ignition.
So this is what we're going to do today and what you're going to discover. The most common mistake of not addressing the problem on a soul level. We have seen this a lot, and we made this mistake also ourselves before we found out how we could do this. Why should you approach transformation backward? So we do it the other way around, and you'll soon see why. Understanding why firekeeping is a key part of that journey. So how works firekeeping, and why do we use it, and how does it fit in the journey, in your journey. And another video, also in the same environment, you'll find an experience how firekeeping works. Just the first step in there to have an experience and to practice with it in your own conversations with your clients.
But before we go on and tell you about the life story and the life force, please close your eyes for a second and for a moment think of the last slightly challenging conversation you had with a client. And just remember what happened and feel it. And that's okay, we'll get back to it later, almost at the end of this video, and we'll see what's changed in there.
Or what you see different.
You can see different.
This is a picture of the journey of life. It's a very simple way of looking at life force. And life force is always about that we have enough energy for the things we are doing. But the moment the lesson is done, the life force will diminish because something new wants to come. Because we are always, as human beings, we are always evolving. And that's usually the moment when there's a question because something is stuck or something doesn't work anymore, or they feel that it doesn't go the direction they wanted anymore, or they are already on the threshold and they know something has to change, but they don't know how to change it. So then the life force is like diminishing until the point that it's on the lowest point. And usually there, something new is born. It's a new idea, a new way of where they want to go. But they get like an answer on the soul level. And then the life force starts increasing again. So they get enough energy to start doing that new direction. So the life force is a really important part in the whole journey of every human being.
And this is also clearly to see where they ask us to help. When it goes down and it's gonna get stuck, or it seems to get stuck. So to make it very clear, people don't come with the question. They come with the feeling of their life force not flowing. They have all kinds of questions, and we'll show later the layers, what kind of questions, but it's always about their life force diminishing. That's the deepest level of what is coming and why they're coming to ask you.
That's also the first thing they recognize. So that's something they don't like, it's uncomfortable, they don't understand why, and they start to find all kinds of solutions, but they don't know. Especially when it's a life lesson and it's transformation, they will not know until they reach the deepest point, where the life force is like zero. It's not really zero, but it feels maybe like that. It's the ultimate point where things come in, but they need to go out of the way. And that's the most difficult part, because our minds are always in resistance of that.
Yes.
First, a bit more about change or transformation, because we will talk about transformation after this. There's a big difference. Change is when we have a problem and we know the solution. So it's the road from A to B. And this is what we usually very much like, because it's very predictable what's going to happen. Transformation is when it's life-changing. Everything is changing. They call it also system change, but your whole point of view is changing. And when something is at the beginning of transformation, you don't know where you are going. So there's always a stage where you really don't know what will happen and how it will look like, because it will have a totally different form. That's transformation. And most of the times when people come to you, they come for transformation. They come for something in their life that really wants to transform. They have done a lot of change already, and then suddenly it doesn't work anymore, and they know it has to transform. So there are all kinds of life events we all know that is ready for transformation. Die laatste mag erop.
Ja, die is mooi.
Ja?
I like another example of transformation and change. I used to work in IT, and when we had a server with programs, every now and then a program needed to be updated, but that didn't make as much impression on the whole system. Something else happened if the system itself or the operating system had to be changed. That means we had to get it down, we had to literally most of the time stop it for a moment and reboot it again. This is more or less the same what happens in the southern point of this graphic. You're going to get the new information for something else, but that's a transformation, it's not a change.
It's like a reset.
Yes, it's really like a reset.
Transformation has phases and layers. And we put all the information in one graph so you can see how it looks like. On the horizontal line, you see the three phases of transformation. So there's a separation phase, where also the life energy is diminishing. You see a liminal phase, where there is a not knowing. That's the space where we start like finding out what the direction is, but we still don't know. It's very uncomfortable, it's very messy. And then we have the integration phase. And that's the part where we start like going into action. We got the answers and we start like walking with the answers. The three phases are in time, they are sequential. So after separation, you cannot go back. And when you are in the liminal, you are in the liminal space. And as soon as you have an answer, then you will move forward. And then on the left side, you see the three layers. So the first layer is the practical layer. This is the part where everything we can see, we can touch, we can count, we can measure. It's the part where we usually find it very easy to find our solutions and to work in. The second layer is the emotional layer. This is the part about how we feel inside about the world outside of us. So our personal feelings, the emotional intelligence. And then the third layer is the unseen world. This is more about imagination, about our desires, about the narratives, the meaning, the values we have. So the three layers, they explain the depth of our listening, the depth of our working with our clients or working with our groups. When you look at the layers and at the phases, most of the part we are working all in the liminal phase in the three layers. And depending on the depth of listening, that's how far you get in the liminal phase.
What we usually see, what we do, is we start talking about practical things. And slowly but surely we work our way through to the emotional layer. By the time we get into the emotional layer, most of the time our time is done and people are going again. Here we miss completely the spiritual layer. There's an incredible beauty of the spiritual layer we're missing, and the transformation is taking another step in time because we didn't touch it, especially the client didn't touch it. And it's very important. We're still talking about transformation and the life force, because the life force is still getting less. They don't have the energy to do much more than, because life themselves forces them to start listening on that level. Until they are able to be listening on that level, all the circles we turn in the practical layer and the emotional layer are circles, like almost like in a hamster wheel. We're doing the same thing, thinking the same thing, having the same emotions over and over again. And although we might take a lot of discipline to take the next step as we can, we're still missing out on the deeper level. And wherever in the future that lesson is going to come back, because it's the soul that wants that lesson, if we like it or not.
One of the examples we see a lot is in the first layer, in the practical layer, that when there are meetings or when you have a conversation with your client, sometimes it's very difficult to move to the next layer. Especially in the practical layer, then at the end, it's like we have to find like actions. We have to make a plan, what we're going to do. We have to find solutions. And that's also where we keep running in circles, because the moment we find these solutions, it feels like we have solved it for a week, for a month, for 2 months. But it will return over and over again because we are not touching what it's all about. It's the same with the second layer, the emotional layer. The moment we touch more the emotions, the moment the grief or the anger or fear is seen or is felt, then there is kind of release, a relief, and then we move as quickly to the action, to what are we going to do now? So how are we going to work with that? Because it's like we've done our work, but it's just the beginning. Because the moment we go a little bit deeper, then we enter the spiritual level. And there the things are really happening. But it takes courage, it takes patience, it takes listening, it takes firekeeping to get there. And that's usually what we, because of time, time is always the part where we do concessions to the results or to the things we decide doing as a facilitator. Then usually we pick up our tools, or we find the structure, or we do the things we think are necessary for that moment. But usually what's necessary is that we take more time and get back to this point. Because the answers we will get will bring us way, way, way further. And that's so important in the process of transformation, that we need to find new answers. There are so many problems we have right now. When you look at the whole society, there's so many things that we have not addressed. And that's what you see in organizations, that's what you see in people. It's like the questions about meaning, they are increasing. The questions about values, they are increasing. And it's always about the spiritual layer that wants to be addressed.
So why firekeeping? Well, it's simple. Firekeeping is the language we speak during transformation. And we all know it. All our ancestors have been sitting at the fire. We have had millions of transformation, all of us. All our lineages had this transformation. And we always sat at the fire because it happened. And fire is one of the big transformational forces of the universe. And we can speak that language. It's not a spoken language, it's a done language with your body. And you have to allow it, but like any language, we have to learn it.
I'm sure you recognize when you sit at the campfire, something is happening. So the moment we see fire, something is like relaxing in our body, and we start like gazing to the flames, and we start like listening differently and connecting with the people also who are at the fire. So it's happening immediately, but this is not also about the outside fire. This is also about the fire in yourself. And that also speaks a language.
The gift of fire and firekeeping, and why we changed what we did, and why we now start with the fire when we start guiding or coaching people. Fire, as you can see on this picture, is the connection with soul, the language that the soul speaks during transformation. Actually all the time, but that fire is easier to listen to. And as soon as we start with this, except as you can see, that it's also healing, but as soon as we start with fire as the starting point of our conversations, of our guidance, it all makes more sense. And a lot of the talk we have to do about the practical and the emotional part is not needed anymore, because as soon as people feel that fire, something else happens. And if you get really good at it, the silence will come, and a deeper silence. And there's a beautiful silence, and you can actually see the moment people start shifting. And this is so important, that we touch that fire and learn that language. And then how we approach our clients changes completely.
In the old days, every community had a firekeeper. And it was really an art to learn and how to guide your community in this part. Because when the community was not moving through the transformation, they were in danger. Because if we do not get the answers, then we are running in circles. So the firekeepers were really important people in the tribes. It feels that we are missing the firekeepers. One of our bigger dreams is that every organization has a firekeeper, or every community should have a firekeeper. So we are really glad you're here.
Yes, because that connection to soul, if it's a person or a group or community, is so important. Because that's when the real power comes back. Then life force gets stronger all by itself. And we've seen amazing stuff happening at the fire with firekeeping, and really deep healings, and including evolutionary steps with people and groups.
One of the things we have been experiencing a lot since we are doing firekeeping is that it's easier to feel the different energies. So everything around the fire, especially when we have the soul talk, is about energy. And when there is more clarity in the energy, it's easier to understand the language. It's easier to listen on that level. Usually what we see, there is a lot of mixing up of energies, and it makes it more difficult. And the moment you're triggered, you're already all over. It's being very conscious of the energy and being very conscious of your place at the fire that will change everything.
Yes.
Not only for you, but also for the people you're guiding.
One extra remark, we wrote it down and I already talked about it, is healing. Healing is no more or less than raising consciousness. You're letting go of where you were stuck. And where you were stuck were the things that make you sick. So healing is a big part of what is automatically going to happen for a big part. And we notice that it's all levels, physical, emotional and spiritual. Because you no longer have the need to hold on to the old. You're starting to build the new. And that's the healing.
What I have been seeing with children, that they are very open and it can happen just in seconds. So the moment they allow to go to that spirit level, even though they don't understand it, it just happens and they shift and they change. For grown-ups, it's more difficult because we have this mind and we think about it and we have all kind of arguments going on. So usually it takes more. But when you see it with children, it's so easy and it's so beautiful how healing takes place just in a moment.
And this is also the beauty, because when we're older we have more practical solutions to think of. We had more emotional stuff handled, but we need to let go of all before we reach the spiritual. But if we start with the spiritual, something else happens quicker. Now let's go back to the question we asked, the challenge or challenges you were thinking of. How about holding it to the light of the soul connection, of firekeeping? So just go back to the challenging situation, and what would have changed if you were there as a firekeeper? Especially watch and see what you're feeling. How your feeling might be changing. Even how you approach the challenge. So that's already a beautiful direction in firekeeping.
That brings us to the next steps. There is another video with an exercise, and it's also a first step in firekeeping. So it's a really beautiful exercise, and you can also take it with you to your clients or to any conversation you have. Experiment a little bit with it, because it will give you new insights in what's happening energy-wise.
And if you like more, because if you're getting the taste of this, you really want to go on, well, at least we did, join us in Firekeeping, the fundamentals. That's the first part of learning the language of firekeeping. And it's got its own rules, and you have to come really home to start learning this. It's a 4-week course online that we are guiding, and it'll teach you really the fundamentals.
We have seen people shift when they had these first fundamentals, and especially in the beginning, a lot is happening. They get way more clarity, way more insight in how things are working in themselves, but also in relation with clients, with groups. So we're always very much surprised what is happening, especially in the beginning. And after that, it takes more to really practice this and work with this.
And deepen the language.
We hope you enjoyed the video and have more insights in firekeeping. If you have any thoughts or questions, please send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you for being here. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you for being here. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.